I was attending the Tana Forum on Security in Africa. It's considered to be one of the most important fora at which African leaders, heads of state and government, and small people like me can be in the room to discuss in an informal setting peace, security, sometimes, occasionally, justice on the African continent. From where I was sitting directly across from the President of Sudan, Omar Hassan al-Bashir, an indictee of the International Criminal Court on charges not only of war crimes, not only of crimes against humanity, but also of genocide. A person wanted for crimes committed against his own people in the western region of Darfur in Sudan, crimes that have been committed since 2003, crimes that are still ongoing, crimes that have resulted in a lot of people going hungry, was sitting in the same room that I was 3.5 weeks ago. I sat there wondering, what has the United Nations Security Council done such that I, a citizen of Africa, concerned about Africans being killed on our continent, would dare be in the same room as Omar al-Bashir? I didn't know what to do. I took a picture of him as evidence that I was in the same room. And I kept wondering whether the systems that are in place ensure that people who commit crimes are held to account, and people who work and agitate to ensure that justice is not only a concept, but justice is something that is seen to be done, should be in the same room. Perhaps the most beautiful irony was that Omar al-Bashir was welcomed into the Tana Forum and noted as one of the dignitaries present. With great pleasure, they said, there is a head of state in our midst, Omar al-Bashir. He laughed and smiled, the same laugh and smile that he has every single time he visits a country in which he could but isn't arrested. And even in countries like South Africa, like he did in 2015, where he could have been arrested, where the High Court sitting in Pretoria ruled that he should be arrested, but he was allowed to go. And I wondered why it is, in spite of an existing International Criminal Court warrant, in spite of the work that the International Criminal Court has done, not just in Sudan, in the DRC, in the Central African Republic, in Uganda, in Kenya, in Mali, in situations they're looking at in Nigeria. I'm starting with the African countries for no other reason than that I actually am an African. It's not that I don't care that people are being killed at the moment, right now in Gaza, by Israeli soldiers. It's not that I don't care. It is that people are also being killed on the African continent. And by using my identity as an African to say, but I'm also an African, I shouldn't be arrested by my fellow people, I often ask, but who's killing the people in Darfur, Sudan? Why is it that the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs of Sudan brought himself to the court? He was on a summons to appear, took himself to The Hague, the International Criminal Court, for his first appearance, not on behalf of the African people, because when you are charged by the International Criminal Court, you are charged as an individual for individual criminal responsibility. Here in South Africa, if someone robs you, you're looking down. But if someone robs you, do you go, because it's a South African that has robbed me, they must not be held to account because I am South African? No. You go to your nearest police station to report the offense. You want to see justice being done, not because you are against South Africans, but because a crime has been perpetrated against you. The United Nations Security Council in 2005, when they resolved to refer the situation in Sudan to the International Criminal Court, made a couple of mistakes. They made mistakes that related to a debate that was ongoing earlier in terms of who to impose sanctions on in Sudan. Had the United Nations Security Council had the balls then to say, Omar Hassan al-Bashir is the president of the Republic of Sudan, you ought to be held to account, and as a result of that, we will impose sanctions on you as we impose on the state, maybe 3.5 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been sitting in a room right across from a feted African president. In 2011, when the UN Security Council referred the situation in Libya to the International Criminal Court, with the hindsight I suppose they should have had with Sudan, they included specific sanctions against people they considered to be responsible for crimes in Libya. They named the now late Muammar Gaddafi, his son Saif al-Islam, who is an indictee of the International Criminal Court, the Minister of Intelligence. For those of you who know, other countries have ministries of intelligence that function. Whether good or bad, they function. They itemized the range of people who, as a result of their proximity to the state or being in the state, had been instrumental in the crimes that were being committed in Libya. Saif al-Islam is not only an indictee of the International Criminal Court, he has also been charged by the Libyan authorities for crimes committed against Libyan people in Libya. The United Nations Security Council learned something in relation to how to refer a situation to the International Criminal Court. Ambassador Marisa, you will soon be the ambassador of the Netherlands to NATO. A month later, the United Nations Security Council made a mistake. They proceeded to impose a no-fly zone over Libya and authorize essentially the use of force, a conversation that was had a little bit earlier as well. The result of that is the calamity in Libya is something today that continues to be felt. It was not the International Criminal Court that imposed a no-fly zone on Libya. It was the UN Security Council. It is important that political decisions not have a direct impact on the people they claim to be protecting. If the United Nations Charter says the UN Security Council is an instrument to promote peace, security, and as a result of that, ensure justice, decisions must be made with peace, security, and justice in mind. People are not prosecuted at the International Criminal Court because they are African. People are prosecuted at the International Criminal Court because they have committed crimes, some of them against Africans. I stand here wondering when the UN Security Council will refer the situation in Syria. I am mindful that there are countries, permanent members of the Council, that do not want Syria to be referred. I stand here now, with just about 1.5 minutes left to speak to you, wondering when anyone will properly pay notice to what is happening in Palestine and Israel. I am mindful that Palestine, by its own declaration, made itself a state party to the International Criminal Court. It referred crimes committed in Palestine, but because Palestine is not fully recognized as a state, in spite of ongoing preliminary examinations into the situation in Palestine, the likelihood that anyone will be held to account is slim. It is not for the International Criminal Court alone to ensure justice. It is incumbent on all member states of the United Nations Security Council to ask themselves whether justice is done to them or whether justice must be done for them and by them. It is incumbent on countries like the Republic of South Africa to make a vocal stand when injustice are perpetrated in situations not just on the African continent, but elsewhere. So I stand here, and in my last word, in congratulating the Republic of South Africa in yesterday withdrawing the ambassador of South Africa to Israel in protest for the killings of 56 Palestinians, the injuring of over 2,000 Palestinians. Because, God damn it, why would you dare protest an injustice?